For millennia, Atlantis has haunted the human imagination, a ghost city, a civilization of unbelievable brilliance, drowned by the sea in one catastrophic day. We picture crystal towers, impossibly advanced technology, and a hubris that eventually brought the wrath of the gods down upon them. We have searched for it beneath the Atlantic's waves, scoured deep-sea trenches, and mapped the ocean floor, only to come empty every single time. But what if, for the last 2,400 years, the greatest historical search of all time has been focused on the wrong ocean, the wrong continent, and perhaps even the wrong kind of disaster? This isn't a search for a magical kingdom. This is a quest for pure archaeological and geological truth. We're moving past the myth to explore the profound possibility that the legend of Atlantis isn't a fairy tale. It's the distorted, deep-seated memory of a genuine historical catastrophe. Prepare to challenge everything you think you know. Welcome to the truth about the Forgotten City. The story of Atlantis is truly unique. Unlike most enduring myths, its origin point is singular and verifiable: the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato. Specifically, the narrative appears in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. These were not meant to be adventure stories. They were philosophical treatises, composed around 360 BC. In these texts, Plato introduced Atlantis not as his own idea, but as a piece of ancient history recounted by his great-grandfather Solon, who in turn heard it from an Egyptian priest in Sais. This layered account gave the story of a near of factual authority that has captivated scholars ever since. Plato describes Atlantis as a military superpower located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is generally accepted to mean the Strait of Gibraltar. He claims this vast island nation flourished 9,000 years before Solon's time, that is, around 9600 BC. His description of the city itself is staggering: concentric rings of land and water connected by enormous canals. The Atlanteans commanded immense wealth, built monumental architecture, and had a central administration ruled by the descendants of the sea god Poseidon. Their eventual destruction, Plato writes, was moral rather than natural. Originally virtuous, the people of Atlantis grew consumed by greed and imperial ambition. Their empire expanded, seeking to conquer Athens and Egypt, until they were finally defeated by a heroic ancient Athenian state. This defeat was quickly followed by divine punishment. The gods, led by Zeus, sank the entire continent in a single day and night of earthquakes and floods, consigning it forever beneath the waves. Why did Plato, a philosopher focused on ideal governance, introduce this tale? This remains the central debate. Was he documenting a genuine, though perhaps exaggerated, historical memory passed down through Egyptian channels? Or was the story of Atlantis simply a political allegory? Most classical scholars favor the latter. For Plato, Atlantis represented the perfect, flawed opponent, the ultimate example of a tyrannical, corrupt naval power. By contrasting the Atlanteans' hubris with the spiritual purity and democratic ideals of ancient Athens, Plato created a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and materialism. In this interpretation, Atlantis served a purely literary and philosophical purpose, its physical existence irrelevant to the truth of its message. Yet it's the sheer detail of Plato's physical description, the size, the precise location, the materials, that keeps the idea of a real physical Atlantis alive. If it was just an allegory, why go into such specifics? That precision is what compels us to keep searching. For centuries, the search for Atlantis has been strictly limited by Plato's coordinates, beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This meant that the Atlantic Ocean was the only area of focus. The quest has been championed by passionate adventurers and pseudo-archaeologists, often leading to spectacular yet ultimately debunked claims. The most famous early proponent was Ignatius Donnelly, whose 1882 book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, popularized the theory that Atlantis was the primordial source of all human civilization, linking it to the pyramids of Egypt and Central America. Following Donnelly, several spots in the Atlantic became major speculation hotspots. The Azores and the Canary Islands. These existing volcanic islands were proposed as the surviving high peaks of the sunken continent. While geologically active and ancient, no evidence of a massive, technologically advanced civilization has ever been found beneath the surrounding deep ocean floor. The Sargasso Sea, this region famous for its vast, floating masses of seaweed, was sometimes associated with Plato's mention of difficult navigation, the belief that the muddy remnants of the sunken island made the sea impassable. The Bimini Road, perhaps the most notorious modern example. In 1968, divers discovered a mile-long underwater stone formation near North Bimini Island in the Bahamas. It looked remarkably like a paved road or the ruins of a wall, and proponents immediately hailed it as the ruins of Atlantis. However, extensive geological studies confirmed it is a completely natural formation of beach rock, an erosion pattern common in shallow marine environments. It's an optical illusion that speaks more to human hope than historical fact. The biggest problem with all these searches is the complete failure to find a single compelling artifact, inscription, or piece of structural evidence that matches Plato's scale and timeline. As we now know, the Atlantic Ocean floor is geologically young, and the notion of an entire continent sinking in a single day is geologically impossible under the laws of plate tectonics. This forces a necessary pivot. If the geological evidence isn't there, maybe the history is simply in the wrong place. Since the literal interpretation of a sunken Atlantic continent is scientifically impossible, scholars began searching for a real-world disaster that could have inspired the myth. This shift brought forward two compelling candidates that now dominate serious academic discussion. Theory 1. The Minoan Civilization and Thera, modern-day Santorini. The most widely accepted and archaeologically plausible theory centers on the volcanic eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini, in the Aegean Sea, which occurred around 1600 BC. The evidence: destruction by water and fire. The eruption of Thera was one of the largest in recorded history. It obliterated the vibrant, seafaring Minoan civilization on the island. The collapse of the caldera created massive tsunamis that devastated coastal settlements across the Aegean, perfectly matching Plato's description of a city destroyed by water and fire. A developed civilization. The Minoans were indeed a highly advanced Bronze Age society, known for their elaborate palaces, sophisticated art, powerful navy, and complex administrative structure, a true rival to early Greece. This aligns perfectly with Atlantis being a powerful naval entity. The time discrepancy. Why place an Aegean disaster beyond the Pillars of Hercules? Plato's Egyptian source may have been recounting a foreign tale, and the location was simply shifted to the mysterious far-off west to make the story more geographically relevant to a Greek audience, a common storytelling device. The Minoan theory provides a solid historical basis for the myth of a highly advanced, morally complex society that met a swift, watery end. Theory 2. The Rikat structure, the Eye of the Sahara. In recent years, a far more radical and visually stunning candidate has gained significant traction among some geographers and theorists. The Rikat structure in Mauritania, Africa, commonly known as the Eye of the Sahara. The evidence. Physical description match. The Rikat structure is a deeply eroded, dome-shaped geological feature presenting a gigantic, target-like series of concentric rings, eerily similar to Plato's description of the Atlantean city's circular layout. It measures about 28 miles in diameter, a scale that fits the ancient account of Atlantis's main city. Location and time. Though nowhere near the sea today, the Sahara was a lush habitable region 9,000 to 12,000 years ago, matching Plato's original timeline. Furthermore, if the Pillars of Hercules referred to a different set of ancient markers, or if the location was severely misremembered over time, the sheer physical resemblance is compelling. Geological debate. While initially thought to be an impact crater, geologists now confirm Rikat is a rare, symmetrical domed erosion structure. Proponents argue that the surrounding areas show evidence of massive flooding in the distant past, exactly what would have been required to suddenly swallow the city. The Rikat theory challenges the traditional focus on deep-sea exploration, suggesting the lost city was found long ago, but was misplaced geographically by ancient oral tradition and is now hidden under the shifting sands of a changing planet. While the Minoan and Richat theories represent the most high-profile possibilities, the study of lost cities reveals that the Atlantis legend may be a composite memory, blending several historical events into one grand narrative. Exploring these lesser-known candidates adds depth to the argument that the myth is rooted in genuine history. Candidate 3. Doggerland, the Atlantis of the North Sea. Between 10,000 and 6,000 BC, a vast, low-lying landmass called Doggerland connected Great Britain to continental Europe. It was a rich, fertile plain, crisscrossed by rivers and inhabited by Mesolithic hunter-gatherer communities, effectively a prehistoric North Sea continent. The catastrophe. Doggerland was slowly drowned by rising sea levels after the last ice age. However, a major sudden event accelerated its demise, the Storegga slide around 6100 BC. This massive underwater slide land off the coast of Norway generated a devastating tsunami that crashed into the surviving Doggerland coastline, likely obliterating the last human settlements in the region. The connection to Atlantis. This event provides clear evidence of a real populated landmass sinking into the sea due to catastrophic flooding. The memory of this event could easily have survived in oral traditions, traveling southward and influencing the stories so long heard, proving that large-scale drowning events were not just theoretical.
Candidate 4.
The Black Sea Deluge Hypothesis. Another prominent theory focuses on the area surrounding the Black Sea. Today, the Black Sea connects to the Mediterranean via the narrow Bosphorus Strait. The catastrophe. Around 5600 BC, the Black Sea was a much smaller freshwater lake. Scientists William Ryan and Walter Pittman proposed that as global sea levels rose, the Mediterranean Sea breached the natural dam at the Bosphorus. The resulting influx of salt water was a massive, high-velocity flood, potentially 40 cubic miles of water per day, that rapidly raised the Black Sea level, inundating vast stretches of fertile land and displacing entire coastal communities. The connection to Atlantis. This event is hypothesized to be the historical basis for many global flood myths, including the story of Noah's Ark. If the Black Sea region was the original setting, the flood perfectly fits the description of a sudden disastrous inundation. Furthermore, the flood's victims scattering westward could have carried the memory of their lost advanced settlements, which ultimately morphed into the Atlantis tale. Candidate 5. Tartessos, the city near the pillars. Moving closer back to Plato's geographical boundary, some historians look at Tartessos, a legendary city and civilization that flourished in the Iberian Peninsula, near modern-day Cadiz, Spain, in the first millennium BC. The connection to Atlantis. Tartessos was a powerful maritime trading center, known for its incredible wealth, especially metals. Its location, close to the Pillars of Hercules, fits Plato's general description. It mysteriously vanished from the historical record around the 6th century BC, perhaps destroyed by its rivals, the Carthaginians, or by a sudden tectonic event, leaving very little trace. While the timeline is off, its location and description as a powerful, wealthy city make it an intriguing contender for a story that was significantly corrupted over centuries.
While historians and geologists grapple with physical evidence, a separate, powerful narrative of Atlantis thrives in the realm of esoteric philosophy and New Age belief. For this community, Atlantis is not merely a forgotten city, but a spiritual epoch, a civilization of high spiritual awareness that fundamentally abused its power. The most famous figure in this realm is the American psychic Edgar Cayce, 1877 to 1945, known as the Sleeping Prophet. Cayce's readings. While in a self-induced trance, Cayce gave hundreds of life readings that referenced Atlantis. His view was radically different from Plato's. Atlantis was a vast continent that existed for tens of thousands of years. The Atlanteans possessed highly advanced technology, specifically utilizing a colossal, powerful crystal known as the Great Crystal, or Firestone, which provided energy. The continent sank in 3 major stages, not just one day, with the final destruction occurring around 10,000 BC. Most compellingly, Cayce prophesied that remnants of Atlantis, including a Hall of Records, would be discovered near the Bahamas, specifically Bimini, and in Egypt in the late 20th century. Impact and influence. Cayce's readings are directly responsible for popularizing the idea of Atlantean crystal technology and heavily influenced the searches at Bimini. Though scientifically dismissed, this narrative taps into the public desire for a lost golden age and offers a powerful counterpoint to dry archaeological facts. It reinforces the cultural belief that the true Atlantis is spiritual and that its survivors carried sacred knowledge to other parts of the world, like Egypt and Central America.
explaining the sudden appearance of complex civilizations. This esoteric view serves a vital purpose. It transforms the legend from a simple historical problem into a spiritual allegory about the consequences of technology divorced from morality.
After reviewing the evidence, the primary source, the failed searches, and the plausible historical inspirations, we must finally address the scientific consensus: the problem with plate tectonics. The most insurmountable obstacle to a literal sunken continent of Atlantis lies in geology. The Earth's surface is made of massive plates floating on magma. Land masses collide and break apart, but they do not simply sink. Oceanic versus continental crust. The crust beneath the oceans, oceanic crust, is far thinner and denser than the crust-forming continents. If Atlantis were a true continent, its remnants would be composed of thick, less dense continental crust. Extensive mapping of the Atlantic seabed confirms the floor is overwhelmingly basalt-rich oceanic crust formed by spreading centers, with no evidence of a massive continental slab having recently vanished. The sinking problem. For a continent the size Plato described to have sunk in a single day and night would require a global cataclysm of unimaginable scale, one that would have left dramatic, verifiable geological signatures across the entire planet. No such signature exists in the geological record dating back 10,000 years.
The allegory triumphs. Therefore, the critical scientific verdict is that the story of Atlantis, as told by Plato, is a fictional narrative, a didactic tale crafted to serve a philosophical purpose. The vast majority of historians and archaeologists agree that the description of a global superpower sinking beneath the Atlantic is a literary device, not a historical document. The purpose of the fictional tale. Plato used Atlantis to frame his political theory. His ultimate goal was not to establish historical fact, but to celebrate the ancient idealized Athenian state. By inventing a terrifying enemy, Atlantis, that was defeated by the virtuous Athenians, he glorified his own city's ancient morality and military prowess. Atlantis was a negative exemplar, illustrating the inevitable downfall that awaits any society driven by excessive wealth, military might, and the pursuit of empire. The exact opposite of the simple, philosophical life Plato advocated.
The fusion of history. This doesn't mean the story has no historical root, however. The legend's power likely stems from Plato weaving together several distinct, real historical elements. The location, a vague reference to the powerful maritime empires, Phoenicia, Carthage, or Tartessos, that actually existed near the Strait of Gibraltar. The catastrophe, the terrifying collective memory of real, large-scale destruction events like the Thera eruption or the Black Sea deluge, proving that civilizations could be wiped out by sudden, overwhelming natural forces. The moral, Plato's own philosophical warning about hubris. Atlantis, then, is a masterpiece of ancient narrative, a synthesis of philosophy, exaggerated history, and collective memory, perfectly crafted to make a powerful moral point. The search for Atlantis has never truly been about finding an island. It's about finding a sense of closure, a confirmation that there was once a hidden golden age, a lost source of knowledge,
or a historical truth lurking just beneath the surface of the world we know. The enduring legacy of the legend lies in its power as a cultural mirror. It reflects our deepest anxieties and aspirations. Anxiety of hubris, the fear that our own advanced technology and pride will lead to our downfall, much like the Atlanteans. Aspiration for knowledge, the hope that a forgotten civilization held the keys to energy, medicine, or peace that we have yet to rediscover. The romantic quest, the fundamental human drive to explore the unknown, to look past the settled facts and believe that the world still holds grand, undiscovered mysteries. From H.P. Lovecraft to Disney films, from scientific exploration vessels to New Age retreats, Atlantis remains a potent symbol of lost potential and archaeological yearning. Ultimately, the Forgotten City is likely not a submerged landmass, but a submerged history, fragments of real events that, when combined by a masterful philosopher, created a story so compelling that we still seek to prove it true thousands of years later. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Atlantis is that the most powerful ruins are not those found in stone, but those built in the minds of men.
But what do you think? Which theory, the Minoan eruption, the Richat structure, or the pure philosophical allegory, offers the most convincing explanation for the enduring legend of Atlantis? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest secrets.